The Silent Dinner. Opening greeting. Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another heartfelt story on our channel. I'm so glad you're here today, joining me around this virtual fireside to share a tale of family, love, and the magic of a child's honesty. So, grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's step into the world of the Johnson family in The Silent Dinner. In a small, weathered farmhouse at the edge of a quiet town, the Johnson family gathered around their old oak dinner table. The scent of roasted chicken, golden and crisp, filled the air, mingling with the warmth of freshly baked bread and the faint aroma of rosemary from the garden outside. But despite the inviting meal, the room was heavy with silence, thick with unspoken words and years of unresolved tension. At the head of the table sat Robert, the father, his hair now fully gray, his shoulders broad but slightly stooped from decades of tending the family farm. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of a man who had poured his life into a legacy. Beside him was Emily, his wife, her gentle eyes scanning the table, always trying to soften the edges of conflict. Across from them sat David, their only son, now in his 30s, his jaw set with quiet determination. Next to David was his daughter, Sophie, barely 7, her legs swinging beneath the chair, her innocent gaze unaware of the storm brewing around her. The Sunday dinner was a tradition, one that had once been filled with laughter and stories. The farm, passed down through generations, was Robert's pride, a symbol of his family's endurance. But for David, it was a burden, a life he hadn't chosen. 4 years, father and son had clashed over this divide. Robert wanting David to take over the farm, David yearning to follow his dream of becoming a teacher. Their arguments had built a wall, and their silences had made it taller. Robert broke the quiet, his voice firm but tinged with frustration. "David," he said, "when are you going to take responsibility? This farm has been in our family for generations. You can't just walk away from it." David's fork clinked loudly against his plate as he set it down. His eyes flashed with defiance. "Dad, I've told you, I have my own path. I want to be a teacher. I can't live my life for your dreams." The words cut through the room like a cold wind. Emily fidgeted with her napkin, her heart aching as she watched her husband and son drift further apart. Sophie stopped swinging her legs, sensing something was wrong, though she didn't understand what. The silence that followed was familiar, heavy with the weight of old wounds. Robert's face tightened. "This farm is our family's heart, David. You're throwing it away for something that might not even work out." "And what if it does?" David replied, his voice rising. "What if I'm meant for something else? Why can't you see that?" Emily opened her mouth to speak, to offer a gentle word to calm the storm, but before she could, a small voice pierced the tension. "Grandpa," Sophie said softly, her wide eyes fixed on Robert. "Why don't you and Daddy laugh together anymore?" The room fell still. Sophie's question, so simple and pure, was like a ray of sunlight breaking through a storm. Robert's stern expression softened as he looked at his granddaughter, her curly hair framing a face full of curiosity and concern. David's hands, clenched on the table, relaxed. Both men were caught off guard, their defenses crumbling under the weight of a child's honesty. Robert's mind drifted to a time when David was Sophie's age, sitting on his lap in the barn, laughing at silly stories about mischievous cows and talking tractors. He remembered the pride in David's eyes when he'd helped plant his first row of corn, the way his small hands had gripped the shovel. When had those moments faded? When had their laughter turned to arguments? David, too, was lost in memory. He thought of the long evenings when his father worked late in the fields, too tired to talk. He remembered the sting of Robert's disapproval when he'd first shared his dream of teaching, the way his father's silence had felt like rejection. But now, looking across the table, David saw not just a stubborn man clinging to tradition, but a father who had given everything for his family. The silence stretched on, but this time it was different, not heavy with anger, but soft with reflection. Emily reached out, placing a hand on Robert's arm, her touch a quiet encouragement. Sophie tilted her head, waiting for an answer, her small hands folded on the table. Finally, Robert spoke, his voice softer than it had been in years. I didn't want to lose everything we built, David. This farm, it's all I know. I thought if you left it, I'd lose you too." David's eyes glistened, his throat tight with emotion. He took a deep breath. "You never lost me, Dad," he said quietly. You just never let me be myself. I love this farm, but it's not my dream. Teaching is. I want to make a difference, like you did for this land." For a moment, no one spoke. The words settled between them, not erasing years of misunderstanding, but softening their edges. Sophie, sensing the shift, smiled brightly. "Does that mean you'll laugh again?" she asked, her voice full of hope. Robert chuckled, a low, rusty sound that warmed the room. "Maybe we can try, Sophie," he said, his eyes meeting David's. David nodded, a small smile breaking through. He reached across the table, and Robert, after a moment's hesitation, took his son's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried the weight of years unspoken. Sophie clapped her hands, her giggle breaking the last of the tension, and Emily's face lit up with relief. The dinner continued, not loud, not perfect, but warmer than it had been in years. They talked about small things: Sophie's school project, the new flowers in Emily's garden, the way the stars seemed brighter that night. Robert shared a story from his childhood on the farm, and David listened, really listened, for the first time in a long while. From that night on, the Johnson family dinners changed. They weren't always easy, old habits linger, but they were honest. Robert began to ask David about his teaching plans, listening with curiosity instead of judgment. David started helping with small tasks on the farm, not out of duty, but out of love. Sophie's question had been a spark, igniting a path toward understanding. In the quiet moments, when the dishes were cleared and the house grew still, Robert would look at his son and granddaughter and feel a warmth he thought he'd lost. The farm was still there, and so was his family, not bound by obligation, but by something stronger: love. Moral of the story: family isn't about winning arguments or holding on to the past. It's about listening, understanding, and making space for each other's dreams. Sometimes, it takes a child's honesty to remind us to hold on to what matters most. Closing thank you. Thank you so much for joining me for this beautiful story today. It's moments like these, stories of family, love, and healing, that remind us how powerful connection can be. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone you love. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell me about a time your family came together in an unexpected way. Your stories mean the world to me. Until next time, take care and keep love close.